So while the last full moon that we had, beginning of April, was very much about Gate 36 and experiential energy and new experiences, we finally move on to a new subject or a new topic and new global definition where we have the will center going right to the throat center. And this is bringing a tribal theme to the energy of this new moon. So we're now moving from the experiential way, moving around, moving through life to a very tribal themed energy that is about asking for the support that you need. And if you're not getting it, to sort of have a big pushback. This is revolutionary energy in a lot of ways. And so this is, even though it is a new moon, it is a culmination of a lot of the energy that we have sort of been working through from sort of the end of January, where the rubber hits the road, which is basically saying it's time to settle your bills. It is time to do what you said you're going to do because we have sort of waited long enough. And now it is time to basically make good on the promises that you made. And this new moon's going to be happening on April 27th at 7 degrees Taurus. And I think it's very interesting because if you look from an astrology perspective, Taurus is very about material things. And this particular new moon is very much about material needs as well. When you look at the channel that is defined, that's the will channel of the 2145. This is the tribal leadership. This is the tribal leader who says, support me and I will support you. Now, the only job that the tribal leader, when it's a tribal leader style of leadership, their only job is to make sure that the people are in some way getting better. That's the whole point of tribal energy. It is to make your tribe stronger than another tribe. So it's make your people stronger than other people. Most times it can come through education. It can come from better food. It can come from a better living environment. It's something that is being bettered. But if that isn't happening and that is your only job, then that is when people really start to get a little frustrated. And your most adamant supporters suddenly turn into your worst enemies. People who support tribal leaders vehemently are the ones that will be the most difficult to contend with when they are disenfranchised by the proposed truth that was promised to them that never came to fruition. And this is really where we're sort of moving for this new moon. So we're going to have a lot of clearing out of energy to say that this doesn't work anymore. We need something better. But as much as you have the people pushing back against the leaders with Mercury in gate 21, line 2, this is basically saying might is right. So, in other words, the leaders are pushing back against the people. And this is all about conformity potentially, conform to the new rules that I've decided to enforce. Now, these may not be the rules that I told you I would enforce when I was asking for your support, but these are the rules that are now the rules that we will live by. And you can like it or not, but that's the way it's going to be. So you have these two completely polarizing in that they're not on the same wavelength. They're not on the same page. We have the people wanting to be supported, to have the food they need, the support they need to survive on the material plane. And then you have the leaders saying, well, this is the new rules. And if you don't like it, that's your problem. And support may not be part of the plan after all, although I did say it was in the beginning. So again, this seems like a tumultuous time where those people who are the most enthralled in the belief that things would be so amazing are really having a wake-up call where they realize that it isn't what they thought it was going to be. But as much as you have a tribal leader who is pushing back against their supporters and saying, you get what you get, we also have a very beneficial leader who's coming to the forefront. And that is where Jupiter is in gate 45, line 4. This is talking about, with Jupiter especially, this is rules, regulations, justices, and it really looks like it's some sort of a judge or some sort of an authority that deals with rules and regulations. Now, what this is talking about, somebody who's got a lot of power, who made a decision, a legal decision, and that legal decision is something that they have come to regret. And they now see that that was not a beneficial decision for the collective. And so this beneficial leader, this leader is coming into the forefront and saying, I made a mistake and now I need to correct it. And now I'm going to change that ruling. And now it's going to be the opposite of what it was in the beginning, whatever that was. And when that happens, this person is taking responsibility for a mistake they made. And maybe it was a mistake that somebody who worked for them made, but ultimately they are the leader of the whole group, and so they're taking responsibility for it. And by taking responsibility, they will pay the price for the mistake and what they did. They have to stand in their integrity because they know that they can't just pretend that they didn't make a mistake. They can't pretend that it wasn't that it was in the best interest of the collective. And this really looks like a beneficial leader who's looking at the collective and trying to help the collective to achieve a better a better life going forward, because this is about gate 45. And again, with Jupiter there, this is really talking about potentially rules, regulations being overturned. Maybe they were one way and now they're being shifted to another way. And when I'm talking about this new moon, you might notice that I'm talking a lot in a global perspective. And I feel like a lot of this energy is very globally inspired because of the definition, because of the defined will center and the throat center. And it does feel like it is a globally inspired new moon. But having said that, it could absolutely be a personal expression in your life. And maybe you have the benefit of maybe somebody made a judgment against you, a court ruled against you, but for some reason, something happens where they realize that it was not the best judgment and that they have to overturn it. So something that you thought wasn't going to go in your favor suddenly is shifted. So that is a beneficial thing that can happen for you in your personal life. And it's also important to keep in mind that we also have the sun, earth, moon, and Mercury all in the first line, which can bring this energy of it resonates to fear. So there might be sort of this fear energy that is wrapped around everything else, especially since we have the last of the awareness splenic fear gates being activated within this full moon, 44 line 1. And this is about past mistakes or past patterns being repeated, and that anxiety of, is something going to happen that happened before? Is it going to happen again? Is this where we are in this moment? And what the truth with that is it is not necessarily set in stone. We don't really know if the patterns are repeating, but we can always have that energy that feels like it's repeating. Gate 44 is all about having past experiences and learning from your past experiences, so that if you're in a situation that looks like it's a repeat of something that happened in the past, you can actually adjust accordingly and shift that pattern so it doesn't result in the same outcome. Gate 24 line 1 is almost like waking up to the mistakes, waking up to seeing the truth. And again, wrapped around this whole energy is this concept of supporters finally seeing the truth, finally waking up. Gate 24 line 1 would be connected to gate 61 line 1 because that would be the harmonic. This is occult truth. And so it is truth being revealed that completely shifts the reality of people who once thought that this was the only way, or this person could do that, or this leader was this. And suddenly everybody's waking up, or a lot of people are waking up, but it is this waking up to see that what we believe to be true, what we rationalize, the stories that were spun over and over and over again, suddenly they just stop. And then there's silence. And in that silence is the truth, the occult truth, the hidden truth is revealed. And it's like probably the most awakening experience that some people will have in that moment of pure and utter clarity and a surrender to the truth, as opposed to wanting to believe in something different than what it was. And this all goes back to, I believe, the reemergence of Gate 30, Line 3 as an exaltation where we can actually sit with the truth and to be with it instead of trying to brush it away and pretend it's not real. This is where we're finally seeing the truth and acting accordingly. Because when you don't see the truth, you can't act accordingly. You're acting on an illusion that is not real. And so anything you do is not going to really change anything about that illusion because it's not really dealing with the facts that are beneath the illusion. And this is where we're literally getting to the root of it all, the truth of it all. and finding clarity. But ultimately, Gate 24, line one is about a reversal of thinking, a reconfiguration of how you see the world, a reconfiguration of how you see everything. And it can be extremely profound in how deeply it can shift your perspective. That suddenly says, we can't continue to be on the same path anymore. It no longer serves us. And the only path forward is one that includes the truth. And the thread that is wrapped around this whole new moon is Saturn. Even though there is less Gate 36 energy, Saturn is really playing a part, but it's connecting with the mundane energy or the tribal energy. So it's talking about tangible consequences based on decisions that were either not thought out well, beginnings that were not planned out well, they were not strategic, or beginnings and things that were done without care for the consequences, where they knew there would be consequences, but it really just didn't matter. They wanted what they wanted and they moved forward. And so this is where karma is saying, okay, here are all the results of all those decisions you made without really having any foresight, strategy, or any of the things that we need when we're doing anything that really matters in our lives for new beginnings. And finally, from a global perspective, we have Mars in Gate 31, line 3, and this is really talking about selectivity. It is talking about democratic leadership, how leaders are only as strong as their followers. And it's very different from tribal leadership. So we have in this one new moon, we have the tribal leadership of the 4521, which is a full channel. So we know that's going to be stronger than we have the democratic leadership. But the democratic leadership is showing us something else as well. And it really talks about you are only as strong as your followers. In other words, if you look at leadership and people who have been in sort of politics, you could say they may have had an aide who was somebody who was found to have done something, and that can bring that politician down in that they are, sort of asked to resign because they had a relationship with this person or whatever. It does talk about a leader who needs to have followers who are not just supportive, but they're a good representation of the the way the leader wants to be seen. So in other words, if you want to be seen as a good leader and you have people who are basically not being good citizens in the world, and that's a representation of basically your your followers is basically representing your who you are, and suddenly your followers are doing these things that are, I mean, maybe they break the law or maybe they do things that you don't want to be seen for, and everything is starting to crumble. Your leadership is starting to crumble, and it is putting a bad light on that particular leader. So we potentially have the supporters acting out in a way that is very unsavory and unflattering to the leader, and it's kind of bringing their credibility down to the point where eventually people lose all confidence in this leader, and it's all based on the actions of the follower. And this is where Mars is. And with Mars, it really does talk about these followers could be doing things that are very aggressive, and this could be where they start to do things that are considered detrimental to society. And every time they do things like that in your name because you are the leader, then your credibility is crumbling as well. And this is what we might see on the world stage, where we start to see supporters of particular leaders doing things that are quite unsavory, sometimes even criminal, and the leader finally paying the ultimate price by losing their leadership or losing all credibility. And this again could be not just supporters, this could be people that work with them who are doing unsavory things. As I said, it could be an aide or some person that works with them who has been found to be doing very unsavory things, and it is fully and utterly being shown up as something that this leader has accepted and maybe in some ways um, championed, and suddenly there's a turning of the wheel, and people see the truth and realize that this person is no longer fit to be a leader. And this is what we might see on the world stage. Overall, this new moon does feel like, again, everything coming to a head where it all has to come into the forefront so we can see everything in its reality and its truth. And only then can we start to shift and change and make corrections for the future. And with that said, I hope you have an inspired and peaceful new moon. And until next time, take care and bye for now.